Thank you for joining me. Today, we will be teaching how to join or how to promote a server to a domain controller. That is, we want to make a server as a domain controller. That is DC. So, what is a domain controller? A domain controller is a server in a Windows network that manages users, computers, password, security, and access to companies' resources. It helps to manage users. We can think of a domain controller as security and identity manager of user organization network. That is, it helps to manage users in the network. Without a domain controller, you cannot log on to your system in an enterprise organization. So it is the domain controller that helps to identify the users, it helps to authenticate the users and the computer themselves also. Imagine a company that has 50 computers, 15 employees. Of course, you're going to have more than one a server. Printers, of course, you're going to share folders and other resources like applications. So you need a domain controller that can do that for you. So to promote this domain controller, you just search for server manager. You click here, this very search windows. Just type server manager, as you can see here. You click on it. Then it will now open and give you this. This is a dashboard for server manager. Then look for manage. You can see this manage. Then click on add a domain and the features. So this is the wizard for domain roles and features. Before you actually do all this, the first thing you must do is to make sure that this server is on static IP address. It must be on the static IP address, not dynamic. That is, it should not be a server that take IP by itself. So you have to allocate an IP address to this server so that tomorrow you will not go and change the IP address. Meaning the IP address has to be well known to a system administrator. So it shouldn't be an IP address that changes all the time. So this is very, very important. This is actually a requirement to make a server as a domain controller. We'll quickly do that now. You just click on this very place, this search window, then type view just type view the network connection, which is this. As I just type view, so it pop up this. So you click on this, then this is the network adapter. Then I click on it, click on properties. Then look for, we are using version 4. There's also version 6. I think version 4 is more common. So I click on it, make sure it's selected. You can see it's not as a gray out because it's not selected. You must select it. Very important. But if it's not selected, you cannot have access to the properties. So it has to be selected. Then click on the properties. Then here, you cannot assign IP. I already done my own. This was expected. But you don't use public DNS. So since this one will be a domain controller, it will also be a DNS server. So I will simply assign its own IP address as a DNS server 192.168.0 then 12. So this one is the gateway. Okay, probably this could be an IP address of your router. That is a router that can give you internet access. Okay, so for now we don't have a router here, but let's assume that this is the IP address of the router. Then why this is the DNS server, and this computer I'm also using as a DNS server. But if I have another computer that has DNS, I can still I will use that very IP address, and it must be in the same network. Must be in the same network. Okay, then I can click on OK, then close, then close. Okay, so back to our initial discussion. So as you can see on the screen, you have, before you begin, this is the first wizard. Okay, then don't select this, don't skip, just click on next. Okay, of course, role based or feature based installation. Okay, no, we are not doing this one. This is the one, the first one. It's already selected by default. Click on next. Everything default. Okay, of course, we only have only one partition here, which is this. Of course, only one server. So we are taking this. And if you look at this, another thing we must also take note of, we must name this computer also. You can see, we must name this computer before we actually start this process. We have to name this computer. How do we name this computer? You can just click on this place as this. Come to right click on this PC, then properties. Then you move on advanced Windows and no change. Let me move on here. Let me look at it here. Okay, let me try this. Check this. Okay, that is fine. Computer name, then change. Then you enter the IP and enter the name of the computer. Okay, so I will not do that one now. That's what you must do. You have to do. Okay, we can do this one later. Okay, so let me just leave it like this for now. We cancel it. So we now back to our initial where we stop. Then click on next here. Then what are we installing? We are installing the Active Directory Domain Services. That is this very one. This one. Active Directory Name Services. I click on it. Then I also need DNS server. As I said before, I said I want to make this server, this computer, as a DNS server. That's why I had to use the IP address that is allocated to this computer in place of it and put it in the DNS area. Then click on the Add Features. Then click Next. Then Next. 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 Then Install. So it will install. As you can see, the installation has started. Okay, it may take like 5 or so, depend how fast is your system. That is the resources of your system will determine how fast the completion will be. So we won't be waiting for this completion to continue. So I will join you when the installation is completed. So you can say we have successfully installed or install the Active Directory. So we click on close. You can see this notification. Okay, we'll click on it and click on promote this server to a domain controller. So this is where we naturally begin the great work. Look at this option here. Select the deployment operation. We have three deployment operations here. We have add a domain controller to an existing domain. Should we select this? No, because this is a first server that we are installing. So we don't have an existing domain. Then add a new domain to an existing forest. Of course, we don't have any. This is first domain controller. So anything existing, when it's existing, meaning if your first server, just remove your mouse from those options. So the next one now is to add a new forest. Of course, this is what will say a new forest. Okay, so a new, what do we say a new forest? You know, forest it it can have as many trees as possible. So also with this one, so the name is coming from forest. We have many trees, so it means you can have as many server as possible. So we are creating a new forest. Okay, then the root name. Let me call it amoeba amoeba dot okay local amoeba dot local. I think this actually, if you don't want this system to be communicating with outside resources, or it's not used for, you just use internally to control internal processes, then you can use local. But if you want it to communicate outside, that is, you want the domain to be active outside also, okay, then you can use .com. I think that will be fine. So for our scenario here, we are using local. Or let's just use .com. .com. Okay, then click on next. What is it doing now? It's verifying the parameter if what I inputted is correct. So let us wait and see. It's not going to take long. Yes. So here we are. We have a window 2016. Okay, I have Windows 2016. That is the window I'm using. Whether you are using Windows 2022, 2025, it's the same process. Nothing different. The same process. So I will now assign the API, the password. Okay? And this password, if your server crash, it is this password you can use to restore that server back. You must not forget it. It's a password that you must remember. Okay? It's not a local password, it's not a domain password. It's called the Directory Service Restored Mode Password, DSROM. It's very, very important. I must emphasize this. It's very, very important. Very important. Okay? So let me just type the password ICT at 123. And you can see, because this is a tutorial, this is a class, so I'm not using a complex password. And on a normal deployment production site, you must use a complex password. and document it in your asset book. It could be your asset book or your daily security record book. It's very very important. Documentation is very very important. You must have a playbook called playbook. Yes, playbook. All the process. Each time you install any hardware for you to be able to pass that information or to even remember what you have done, you must document it, write it down, write it step by step, so that even though you are no longer in that company, anybody that's coming can just pick that book and read it, and he will know what to do. And that is how RTA should work. Should not just everything should not just come from your head and no. If you are not here, nobody nothing can move on. There must be what RTA documentation. Very very important. Especially all your passwords must be documented. RCT at 123. Sorry, it's long. RCT at 123. So click on next. Then don't mark this. Of course, you clear out. You can't even select it. So click on the next. So let's see the name bio domain name. Of course, it's Amoeba. So Amoeba should come out here. Fine. Perfect. You can see it didn't add a .com. Just as a name bio name does not come with a .com. Know that. Okay. Then click on the next. Then next. Next. Fantastic. Good. So the process is progressing. Verify prerequisites for domain controller operations. This may take some few minutes to complete. When it is completed, then we'll get back to you. Yes. So forget about this are warning. Okay, these are just a warning. Okay, it's not critical warning. Meaning you can accept it, you can ignore it. So just warning. So click on the install. So starting. So what am I doing now? I'm now promoting this server to a domain controller. So it cannot control all the resources in the environment where this computer will be installed. You can see it's as easy as ABCD. So this what an IT administrator must know. Okay, even at the junior level, you should be able to control an enterprise company, at least able to install Windows, Windows Server, configure it, then promote it, and after adding the users, start managing it. So if you can do this, you are job ready candidate. It's very very important. There is no company that does not use a domain server. No company. Almost all companies use a domain controller, and very very important. So you can see I'm done with it. So it's asking me to sign out, meaning it will restart. Okay, close, close. So restart it. Okay, now we are back. Welcome back. So now the window has restarted and configured. Let us try to log in. You can see I'm using a virtual box. So you can see I'm already in the active directory. You can see it here. So my password is RCT at 123. So that's the domain. So I've installed a domain controller. There are many other things. This server manager restarting by itself.